Good morning, everyone. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. I'm Edward Ahmed Mitchell, the National Deputy Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations. On behalf of CAIR and our partners, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're here today to announce and discuss the federal lawsuit that CAIR, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Muslim Legal Fund of America, and Akil and Valentine have filed against Governor Ron DeSantis to defeat his blatantly unconstitutional executive order targeting our civil rights organization. I want to start by noting the following. 60 years ago, during the height of the civil rights movement, the NAACP was winning legal victories across our country. They were desegregating public schools, winning the right of African Americans to enjoy equality under the law. Segregationist governors, racist politicians could not win the argument. They could not win in court. And so what they did is they decided to try to silence those civil rights activists and those civil rights organizations. Alabama, Texas, Florida, and other states tried to disrupt and dismantle the NAACP. They subjected them to witch hunts. They tried to ban them from operating. They tried to prosecute their members. They tried to access their membership lists to scare away their donors and their supporters. The NAACP in Alabama was shut down for 8 years until the Supreme Court intervened and said, indeed, they have the right to operate and to stand up for civil rights. Ultimately, those racist segregationist governors failed, but the tactics they employed have once again come to life today. A few weeks ago, Governor Greg Abbott in Texas issued an executive order that unilaterally declared CAIR, the nation's largest Muslim civil rights organization, to be a terrorist group and purported to ban CAIR from buying land in Texas. Now, any lawyer would tell you that that order was blatantly unconstitutional. The governor does not have the right to upend the American legal system by declaring Americans to be criminal actors, punishing them without any due process, and then carrying on with his life and his days if nothing happened. That's not the way it works in America. There's a thing called due process, and there's a thing called free speech. The government cannot punish Americans because of our speech. CAIR sued Governor Abbott immediately after he issued that order, and we're going to court in the coming weeks to address that order. In the meantime, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida decided he wanted to do the same thing. He wanted to copy this effort. And so Governor DeSantis last week issued an executive order that also smeared CAIR and CAIR Florida and directed agencies in the state of Florida to deny access to state contracts, to benefits, privileges, workman's comp, anything and everything under the sun, to not only CAIR and CAIR Florida, but anyone who supports CAIR Florida, people who give CAIR advice, assistance, anything at all. Governor DeSantis, like Governor Abbott, is clearly violating the Constitution. He's clearly violating the law. He's clearly trying to replicate the same tactics that were used against the NAACP in the 1960s. And he's doing all this. Why? Because CAIR is engaged in wrongdoing? No. He's doing all this. And Governor Abbott is doing all this because of who CAIR is, because of the success that CAIR has had. Over the past 31 years, our organization has successfully defended free speech and religious freedom and advocated for justice for all people here and abroad. And it is our advocacy in particular for the Palestinian people, for a just American foreign policy towards Palestine, that has attracted the ire of Greg Abbott, Ron DeSantis, and other anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian, Israel first politicians. In recent years, CAIR has filed successfully numerous lawsuits to protect the right of free speech of college students, of workers, of others to speak up about the genocide in Gaza, to criticize our government's unconditional support for that genocide, as is their right as Americans. CAIR sued Greg Abbott 3 different times over the past 7 years and won 3 different times when he tried to silence Americans critical of the Israeli government. Last year, we sued Ron DeSantis because he threatened to shut down every pro-Palestinian college student group in the state of Florida. We took him to court, and once he got there, his attorneys backed off and said, well, no, we haven't actually done that. We're not going to do that. And those groups are still open and operating today. And that is the reason why Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott and other anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian politicians want to smear and target our civil rights organization. But what they didn't realize is that the law still matters. Facts still matters. Due process matters. Free speech matters. And that's why today we are taking Ron DeSantis to court to remind him that he is the governor of Florida, not the king of Florida, and that the Constitution still reigns across our country, including the state of Florida. Today, you're going to hear from the attorneys who are leading this lawsuit from CAIR Legal Defense Fund, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and Akil and Valentine, and the Muslim Legal Fund of America. They will explain to you what this lawsuit is about, what we expect to come from it, and why this legal action is so important, not just to our civil rights organization, but to all Americans and their right to engage in activism, in free speech, and talk about issues that are important to our nation without facing illegal government retaliation.
I was unable to hear.
With that, I'm going to.
So I don't know where we are.
With that, I'm going to open it up to our first speaker, which will be Lena Masri, the CAIR litigation director. And Mr. Allison, we can hear you, so if you could just make sure you're silent.
Okay.
With Mr. Swift, you all could just make sure you're silent.
Are we doing anything right now?
And we'll bring on now Lena Masri. Lena, come on, and we'll hear from you.
My name is Lena Masri. I'm the CAIR National Litigation Director. Thank you for being here. Yesterday, we filed a lawsuit to stop what is one of the most extreme abuses of executive power that we've seen in American history, in modern American history. Governor Ron DeSantis issued an executive order purporting to label a domestic civil rights organization, the Council on American Islamic Relations, as a terrorist organization, and then ordered sweeping punishments to follow. He did so without any evidence, without any due process, and without any legal authority. That is not how this country works. No governor has the power to unilaterally declare an American nonprofit a terrorist organization. That authority belongs to the federal government, and it is governed by statute, process, and constitutional limits. The governor ignored all of that. This lawsuit is not about whether the governor agrees with CAIR's advocacy. By its own terms, the executive order immediately strips CAIR and those who associate with us of access to public contracts, employment, funding, and benefits. It tells law enforcement to take action, and it does all of this without notice, without standards, and without any way to challenge the designation. That is a textbook violation of the Constitution. It violates due process, it violates the First Amendment, it violates the Supremacy Clause, and it exceeds the governor's authority under Florida law. The governor has also made clear what this is really about. He publicly welcomed this lawsuit because, in his words, it would give the state a, quote, opportunity to dig into CAIR's finances and internal affairs. That statement alone confirms the retaliatory nature of this order. The Constitution does not allow government officials to use investigations and punishments as a political weapon. Today's lawsuit seeks one thing: to restore the rule of law. We are asking the court to declare this executive order unconstitutional and to stop its enforcement immediately. This case is not just about CAIR. If a governor can do this to one civil rights organization today, he can do it to any organization tomorrow, religious, political, conservative, progressive, or otherwise. The Constitution protects everyone, or it protects no one. We look forward to proving in court that no governor is above the law, and that constitutional rights do not disappear because a politician finds an organization inconvenient or unpopular. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Masri, for that. We appreciate it. We'll now bring on Arthur Ago from the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Thank you, Edward. It's great to be here with you all today. The Southern Poverty Law Center is a catalyst for racial justice in the South and beyond, and we work in partnerships with communities to dismantle white supremacy, strengthen intersectional movements, and advance the human rights of all people. CAIR is the nation's largest American Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. Governor DeSantis' executive order encroaches on CAIR's First Amendment rights to pursue its peaceful, lawful advocacy to educate Americans of all faiths and beliefs about Islam and to advocate on behalf of Muslims facing discrimination and harm in this country and beyond the borders of this country. The executive order is a clear attempt to portray American Muslims as threats and is a continuation of a baseless culture that unfortunately exists in this country concerning fear of Muslims that too many people have pushed for decades. SPLC is proud to continue to fight for our partners at CAIR and at CAIR Florida, and proud to advocate that hate and racism will not be tolerated. We will stand up for CAIR to ensure that it can continue its critical mission of advocacy and civil rights on behalf of Muslim communities both in Florida and across the nation. Thank you, Edward.
Thank you, Arthur, and thank you to the Southern Poverty Law Center for your decades of work defending the rights of all Americans, dating all the way back to the Civil Rights Movement. We appreciate it. Now we'll hear from Charlie Swift from the Muslim Legal Fund of America. Many of you know Charlie, esteemed longstanding attorney, has been fighting for the rights of all Americans, including American Muslims and others, for years. We'll bring him on screen. Just give us a moment.
In that case, good morning, everyone.
Yes.
My name's Charles Swift. I'm the Criminal Defense Department head and the interim Civil Department head at MLFA. And it's been our honor to join with CAIR in bringing this lawsuit. MLFA, in the course of its existence, and personally myself, have been part of a lot of lawsuits that are extraordinarily important, both in criminal defense and civil work. We've never been in a lawsuit that's more important than this one. At issue in this case is whether a governor, by utilizing a label, can silence his critics. It's that simple. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. It's not just CAIR's rights that are at stake here, it's yours. Again, if the governor can label CAIR as a terrorist organization with no lawful means for that, no due process, and then silence them by doing that, he can label any reporter, any person, any place on farm, and silence them. And if we silence our critics, what kind of democracy will we have? This is as important a case as MLFA has ever had, and it is our absolute privilege to be with him on this case as we are in Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Swift. Thank you. So now we'll open up to any questions from journalists. We'll have our producer bring on the feed for journalists. And if you all have any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves. If you could just raise your hand so we take you in order. Or you can post any questions in the chat on Zoom. We'll take them that way. I will also note that in Tampa, Florida today, our CAIR Florida office and some of our national leadership will be holding an in-person press conference at 12:30. And so anyone in that area is welcome to attend that or watch online. Mr. Allison, you can bring on Arthur, you can bring on Lena, and you can bring the feed to the reporters, and we'll see if anyone has any questions.
In the context of other anti-Muslim rhetoric coming from elected officials recently, Senator Tommy Tuberville calling Islam a cult and Representative Randy Fine saying Muslims should be kicked out of the U.S. Do you think this rhetoric is dangerous? And if so, in what way? Can you talk about the timing of it and why now?
The rhetoric, first, is the rhetoric dangerous? Absolutely. Is it bigoted? Absolutely. I'm going to put into part on the Constitution protects people's rights to be bigoted, not the government's rights. In the government, the Free Exercise and Establishment Clause says the government can't be bigoted. When Senator Tuberville speaks for himself, he reveals himself, but he speaks for himself. When he speaks in Congress by passing legislation, that's something else. When a governor issues an executive order to silence Muslims, that's a different question altogether. Because if you can do that, as I said earlier, you can silence anyone's freedoms. Their statements reveal who they are. Statements based in religious hate, no tolerance, etc., in this process are unbecoming of us as Americans. But more importantly, for the purpose of a lawsuit, when they're made in an official capacity to enact or cause something, then they violate the very heart of the Constitution. Fortunately, our founders foresaw this and prohibited it.
All right, I see the next question here. A few weeks ago, we have a question from NPR. A few weeks ago, the White House issued an order designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist group. The order somewhat mirrored Governor Abbott's resolution.
Question.
I'm interested to know whether you see, if you could scroll down further, Ismail. So to answer that question, we've seen no indication whatsoever of the federal government trying to replicate the attacks that Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis have launched on our organization. The federal government is very familiar with CAIR. has worked with CAIR to address certain issues behind the scenes, and knows that CAIR is an American civil rights organization, an independent organization that has condemned terrorism for 31 years. In fact, we condemned terrorism so often that ISIS called for the assassination of our leadership, and the FBI had to step in and make sure that we were safe. CAIR has also played a role in keeping Americans safe, including helping federal law enforcement thwart attacks on the American people, including an attack on President Trump during his first term that we helped the FBI to thwart. So the federal government knows all this. We have no expectation they will try to follow in Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis' footsteps. But if something crazy happens, CAIR is certainly prepared to defend our rights at all levels of government and carry on with our work, God willing. So another question we see here is, could you elaborate on what appears to be efforts to restrict First Amendment rights, such as the firing of employees who criticized Charlie Kirk? Well, I'll let maybe Arthur address this, or Lena, if you'd like, but free speech in America is a bedrock of our Constitution. It's a bedrock of the way our society functions, and free speech does protect things that many of us would find hateful. It is part of your constitutional right to say hateful things about CAIR, about the Muslim community, about political figures. That is your right as someone in this country. You can do that. However, what the government cannot do, is try to punish you, deprive you of your legal rights because you said something the government dislikes. And that's across the board. We at CAIR do not ask the government to punish people if they say things that we as Muslims dislike. That's not our business. That's not our right. And Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis cannot do the same. They cannot try to punish our civil rights organization because we dare to advocate for Palestinian human rights or dare to defend the free speech rights of college kids. So that's free speech. We support it wholly, and we are the ones defending free speech. We are the ones defending free speech from politicians who seek to shred it to protect a foreign government from criticism.
I can add to that, Edward, that the Southern Poverty Law Center is very concerned about hate and extremist speech. But Edward's absolutely right, is that in certain contexts, that hate and extremist speech is protected by the First Amendment. And we at the Southern Poverty Law Center will fight hate and extremist speech with rational, lawful, peaceful speech. And that's the way that we advocate in that space. When that speech crosses the line, however, and turns into threats or conduct, that's when we at SPLC will take a stance and litigate in that space and fight that speech in court. Now, with regards to what's happening in this case and what's happening to CAIR, and then the question also had to do with speech that was critical of Charlie Kirk. We at SPLC are very concerned, in particular, given CAIR's mission, peaceful, lawful mission to educate people about Islam and to advocate on behalf of Muslim Americans, that what CAIR is being punished for is its speech and its associations. And that to SPLC is unacceptable, and that's why we are involved in this case.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you. Mr. Allison, any other questions that we're getting from our guests in the newsroom? Okay, well, with that, I will say the following, that again, at 12:30 in Tampa, there will be a live in-person press conference hosted by CAIR Florida. We'll also have some national leadership there to address questions and discuss the impact of this further. In the meantime, we are available to discuss anything offline with you all. If you have any questions, reach out to CAIR, the Southern Poverty Law Center, MLFA, and we are happy to answer those questions. To our community, we say the following. CAIR has been here for you for over 30 years. CAIR is the American Muslim community's shield. Our job is to protect the community from harm. And being a shield means taking arrows. It means taking hits. That is our job. That's what we are meant to do, like other civil rights organizations do for their communities. What we expect you to do is to hold your shield high, keep it strong, so we can make sure we continue to protect your rights. The goal of all these attacks is ultimately to silence not only CAIR, but the American Muslim community. Because we've been so effective in exercising our right to free speech, engaging in activism, taking care of our neighbors, advocating for justice here and abroad, and bad actors want to stop us. They want to silence us and take us back to the shadows, put us back on the margins of American society. But we're not going there, God willing. We are going to continue to exercise our rights to free speech, religious freedom, and to speak up for justice here and abroad. This lawsuit that we have filed is part of that effort to ensure we can continue to do so, and we will keep you updated on the progress of this legal action, God willing. In the meantime, I want to again thank the Muslim Legal Fund of America, the Southern Poverty Law Center, CAIR Legal Defense Fund, and all of our friends and allies, supporters who have reached out to us to offer support in recent weeks. It's recognized, it's valued, it's appreciated. Thank you for being here for us, and we will continue to be there for you, God willing. In the meantime, thank you all so much. Have a great day. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you.